Okay, welcome again to another clip from Bold Like a Leopard, and I apologize for the shitty quality ahead of time today, but my computer took a complete crap and I don't know if I'm going to have it back, and it's going to throw a huge wrench into some ideas I had for content. But in any case, I still want to continue commenting on some things, and it's not as if there isn't stuff to talk about, and you all know what I mean. So yesterday, this is one of the reasons that I did not have a video yesterday. I did record a video, or rather I recorded some audio talking about the rejected nomination of David Chipman and the decision by the White House to withdraw his nomination. And I think that that was one step forward, but this video is going to talk about the infinity steps back in terms of personal liberty, because while I don't know if his vaccine mandate policy is going to stand, at the moment it could be that we're going to see America become virtually a dictatorial state, because President Biden decided that it's not enough that he would move illegally to ban assault rifles. It's not enough that he would illegally, and I mean that he would move, he would do it through the executive branch, through executive order. It's not enough that he would go and try to do things like unilaterally determine our immigration policy, which got thrown out by the Supreme Court. And it's not enough that he also decided in his infinite wisdom to extend the eviction moratorium, which got struck down by the Supreme Court. But President Biden has decided now that, along with all those other overreaches that he's done of executive power, which, to be honest with you, who's to know any more what are the limits of executive power, given what previous administrations like the Obamas and the Bushes, and yes, even Donald Trump, have been able to get away with. President Biden, he has decided that, he's going to make it an offense for employers not to have all of their employees vaccinated, so long as, I believe, they need to have more than 100 employees, and then for each employee that's unvaccinated, they have some sort of exorbitant fine that's $14,000 per period. I think if I'm not mistaken, it's $14,000 a day. I don't remember, but I'm doing this on the fly. You can correct the details later. And actually, there was a journalist who, I think she did a very good job of really getting into some of the rationale behind this yesterday, from Red State, and she said that it could be, and this is just speculation, that part of the reason that Biden decided to unleash all of these mandates was as retribution for the rejection of David Chipman. And if that really is the case, then I think we really are seeing an administration that is so power hungry and corrupt that it will use its executive orders in the most vindictive way possible. But I don't know, it is speculation. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I do want to talk both about the ATF nominee Chipman getting withdrawn, as well as the vaccine mandates. Look, so as you might know, some of these videos I record on Fridays. I don't have too much time, but the ultimate message of it is that the Chipman nomination was in the hopes that the Biden administration could put their own stooge at the head of the ATF, and through that sort of largesse, through that extension of their policy vision, they could basically write federal law without the legislature, without Congress, and without the approval of the legislative branch. And then they could basically enforce these assault weapons bans without any sort of other branch being involved. Now, I think that long term, it is possible, that this would have been a dud, because you would have had people who would have had their assault rifles confiscated, and they would have sued to get this unconstitutional mandate revoked, because obviously you need sort of a framework that's grounded in actual law, not grounded in regulations, not grounded in the at-whim dictates of a federal bureau, in order to have it actually enforceable and actually lawful under the U.S. Constitution. So I think there's a chance that the Chipman nomination, if it had gone through, it would have still backfired for the Democrats. And I think that some Democrats who were a little more sane than others realized that it might not be the best idea to put Chipman at the head of the ATF, even if it would sustain their anti-Second Amendment agenda, right? So while not all of these senators who refused to forward his nomination, like Senator Angus King of Maine, who's not really a Democrat officially, but he basically votes with the Democrats all the time, he is somebody who basically said, it's not worth my career and my reputation here in Maine, and plus this guy could probably seriously lead to some real problems with regards to the Second Amendment and real civil disorder that he would cause. So he didn't support him. He didn't support his nomination. Also because it's possible that the Supreme Court would have knocked down many of the measures that he would have enacted. So similarly, if we transpose this issue to the vaccine mandates that Biden is proposing, there are already rumblings, and you can look at some channels like Viva Frei and others that go into the real legal implications of what's been proposed, because some people are calling it a workaround, that you use private corporations to enforce a mandate as opposed to the federal government, and they've openly admitted that it's a workaround. And what that implies is that they know that if the federal government were to do this of its own action, right? If the federal government were to say, well, you must get the vaccine or else we would impose some sort of criminal or civil penalty, then it's possible that this would have been knocked down by the Supreme Court on its face. But now we're going to use this, this vicarious method by telling corporations, oh, you now must mandate that your workers get these vaccines. So it could be that this will not be long for life, that it will be a tremendous failure, like other things that Biden has promoted in his short presidency. And indeed, he's had so many failures so far that I think his track record speaks for itself. You don't have to panic just yet, but you should be very worried. And why am I saying that you should be very worried, even though it could be that this will be struck down? Well, the fact is that you had justices who have failed to really look into the implications of what they've allowed, such as the recent case involving some students at the Indiana University, where they sued so that they wouldn't have to abide by the vaccine mandate of their school. And people like Justice Amy Coney Barrett said, well, we're not going to really enforce this is something that's fine. And she basically punted and said, this is not really something that we should bring up. And so, those vaccine mandates went through. So you can't depend on the courts. The courts are not actually accountable to the public. They're only accountable to their own personal vision of how the Constitution interprets various laws that are on the books. So if a justice can construe some way that's convenient for their vision, or maybe convenient for the way they think society should go in order to get to the decision that they want, well, it might not matter whether it is constitutional or not to mandate application of vaccines for every citizen through this corporate workaround by having corporations say, oh, you work for us, if you want to keep working here, you better get the jab. So there are justices like Kavanaugh and like Barrett who, unfortunately, while they've been called conservatives their entire lives, they are in reality corporate conservatives. And unfortunately, there's major differences between different types of conservatives. There are conservatives that I feel are less ideological, and they're willing to say, no, there's a limit to this, and corporations don't have unlimited powers where those of the government end, right? So people like Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, I think, unfortunately, I didn't really know this much about Amy Coney Barrett, but I saw this about Kavanaugh from the get-go. While they may be a little bit more reasonable than some of the past justices like Ginsburg on some issues, that they are also in their own way tainted because of their past association with such bills like the Patriot Act, which Kavanaugh helped to craft. So that's one issue that I think people should bear in mind. Another thing that I think you should really be afraid of, if you are in one of these vulnerable groups that you are not vaccinated and you don't plan on getting the vaccine, is that those people that I know who, and believe me, if you are watching, you know who you are, and it's hard for me to say this in a civil way, but I'm going to try. If until now you've been waiting in your house and hoping that A, COVID ends, and B, COVID ends and you don't have to take the vaccine, you're basically, you're standing on two train platforms. That's the way I want to explain it. Because one train is going one way. That's COVID. It's not going the other way. It's going to keep spreading because it is a virus that's constantly getting new variants through mutations that are only natural for coronavirus strains, right? So every year there are novel coronaviruses, just like there's novel strains of influenza. So, and this is something that people who have a basic understanding of virology and biology understand. There's other things about those issues that are a little more deep, but these are some very, very basic truths about virology. So that's the one platform that you're standing on where you think COVID's going to end and you can safely go outside. That's never going to happen, and you can forget about it. So in my opinion, you can already go outside. The other thing is that if you think that just because you're staying at home and you're not interfering in anyone's life, are they really going to let you go live your life in your own home without any harassment? I would say that you have already seen just what they're doing to people who are not abiding by mask mandates, or people who are not taking the vaccine and who work for various professions, nurses and dissident doctors. You're seeing what they're doing to people who speak out about alternative treatments like Joe Rogan concerning ivermectin, or even the president, when President Trump at the time, when he talked about hydroxychloroquine, and how much grief that they were caused simply for things like that. And yet you think that because you're staying at home and you're laying low and nobody's really knows anything about you, that the government is not going to try to extend their reach into your own home. Forget about it. They know basically if you are using various tech platforms or messaging apps, that you have the vaccinated or unvaccinated status. They can find out if they need to. And based on the history of this administration, why would you think that they would stop at people who go outside, right? So there are people I know, and I'm not talking about only one or two people. I'm talking about several people that they tell me that, this whole issue with the vaccine, it's a massive scandal, and people shouldn't abide by it, and they shouldn't take it and everything. And on the other hand, they think that it's too unsafe to go outside of the house. Well, eventually, if you recognize the landscape for what it is, don't you think it's going to be too unsafe to stay in your house too? Because the people who have been making life a living hell for people who go outside, they're not going to be satisfied with you having the four walls of your house to yourself. They're going to come in there. First of all, they're going to knock on your door. They're going to encourage you gently to take the vaccine. And then when you refuse, they're going to stop encouraging you gently. They're going to do things like cut your utilities, cut your power. Power is a utility, but you get the drift. In any case, this is an easy case where you have to understand that either you stand on behalf of your own personal prerogative to live, or you're going to cower in fear and wait for them to use you as they see fit. And that's, I think, the basic message here. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can also find me on Odyssey, as well as BitChute and Rumble for video hosting. And you can follow me on Gab and Minds, and also on Telegram if you want. Subscribe to the newsletter below and support me through SubscribeStar, and have a great day.